Alright folks, Tier 9 tech tree Czech light tank, the LPT-67, does look more like a AMBT to me, the American Tier 8 medium tank. Elevated engine deck slightly, the shape of the turret and the hull front looks like a medium, like this vehicle, but it has twin 57mm autocannon, packs more punch than the Tier 8 premium, the 50mm on the VZ68. However, it has the same penetration and the same shell velocity, so no premium tank bias there for some reason. Well, then again, if it has like 200mm pin for base AP, that might be pretty good. So balancing, but does deal more damage than the 50mm on the Tier 8 premium, so that's a plus, especially for the high explosive rounds. But we'll take a look later on. So it does look like a medium tank, plays like a medium tank. All the Czech light tanks are rather medium tankish, right? Like the VZ68, the upcoming VZ71, and this vehicle. Only the VZ64 looks more like a hybrid, like a light tank actually, based on the size and based on the firepower. But yeah, you play with these things like a medium, like a RU251, HWK30, possibly T54 lightweight, the T100 light tank, but yeah, plays a little bit more aggressively or wolf packing with other vehicles rather than solo scouting by themselves, like AMX-13s or Manticores, or even the most of the British too, the LHMTV and stuff like that, or the GSOR. But yeah, medium tank, bigger gun though, packs more punch. Yeah, wolf packing with these vehicles seems scary, but then again, you cannot wolf pack with light tanks. You cannot platoon with light tanks. That's a caveat. Interesting. You cannot 3-man platoon in a light tank, so you can only platoon with a light tank and a bunch of mediums. But interesting how that works out. So preventing you from like 9 light tanks per side, or like 6 light tanks per side, 3 on each side, all with platoons and all go machine gunning. That would be crazy. So yeah, no light tank platoons, please. You're supposed to scout, but then again, these vehicles are not really meant for scouting. So the same penetration as with the 50mm on the Tier 8 premium, but deals 50% more damage, and especially about 100% more damage for the high explosive rounds. So 25 times 75 rounds, that's about 1900 burst damage with high explosive. You will practically very closely melt a waffle trigger off U100. If you roll high, that thing has like 2000 health or something, but that is crazy. Also, 50mm pin is not that bad against armorless targets. It's not that great for a regular tank shell. You want about 100 to 120 for something like a Hesh round, but that's okay. Gold shell is fine, does deal less damage, but not as crazy of a drop off compared to the Tier 8 normal tank. We saw from like 8 damage or 6 damage all the way to like 3 damage. So it's only 75% of the actual normal AP alpha damage, which is okay. It's not the worst, but I think it's mostly because of the clip size. They don't want you to spam that much gold with like 160 rounds or 200 rounds in the clip, so that's fine. But reload time between each shell is slightly slower than the 50mm, so slower rate of fire in a sense, but aim time is 2 seconds. Accuracy is the same across the board for all the tiers. Does have 7 degrees of gun depression compared to 5 or so, or 6 on the premium Tier 8. And carries a little bit less ammo, 3-man crew. Top speed is dramatically better than the 53 on the VZ68, so that's a plus. Better horsepower per ton ratio. Almost light tank traverse speed other than the hull. That's a fast medium tank traverse for hull. They want about 60-ish degrees per second for light tanks, but this is a combat light tank. Barely more health than the Tier 8s, surprisingly. Has 40mm hull armor and 50 for the hull armor and 40 for the turret. So theoretically, you cannot penetrate yourself with high explosive half the time. And camo is slightly worse than the tier 8s, just slightly, by like 0.8 or so. View range, the same? Surprisingly, not 390? That's unfortunate. And radio is standard. Huh. That the shell velocity stays the same. The view range stays the same. The health almost stays the same. Just better top speed, better engine power, better hull traverse, better gun depression, same accuracy, same aim time almost, but smaller clip size, longer reload between each shot. It's also 20 seconds between each clip too. Yeah. Penetration also stays about the same. It's actually the same. You just have more damage per shot. So 50% more alpha damage for normal AP round, and high explosive gets better, like 60%, a little bit more. So just the alpha damage change. Otherwise, you carry less ammo. That's fine, I guess. Okay. Cannot spam too much compared to the tier 8 premium, but the stock gun is a 50mm, I believe. So DPM, if you manage to pin all the AP round, is not bad. Switch this to 25 alpha and basically double this DPM for high explosive rounds, right? That is crazy to me. Yeah, double. Almost more than double than the normal AP. So if you manage to pin all the high explosive rounds, this thing has 4,720 DPM with high explosive. So high explosive from this gun, scary to say the least. But 75 rounds, you have to manage to make it work. So rate of fire is obviously slower than the 50mm on the stock gun, so that's why it's showing up red. But traverse for the turret is quick, aim time is it's only 1.9 with the upgraded turret, so not that bad. 0.38 accuracy, about the same. Downside to this vehicle is likely the health. The health doesn't seem to get buffed that much, and also the view range. View range is the same as the tier 8, but with worse camo. So you are more incentivized to play as a medium rather than a light tank, especially with the gated return of view range and camo. So it's about the gun. It's about playing as a medium. It's not exactly a light tank. It's a medium tank without HP practically. But 3-man crew, standard, versatile, light tank, not really a car. They should add more categories to the light tank, not just versatile. You have combat light tanks or support light tanks or sniper light tanks, like with the Manticore or stuff, but nah. Yeah, stock gun is a 50mm, has better shell velocity than the upgraded gun. No high explosive, surprisingly. Interesting. It is the same alpha damage as with the premium tier 8, 50mm, but wait a minute. That's not really a premium shell. It costs the same with the same banner. This is not a premium shell. It's just regular APCR. Has less penetration. Or has more penetration. That's a penetration. Less rate of fire. 200 round compared to 125. Interesting. That's per second. What the hell am I looking at? I have no idea what the hell I'm looking at. That's shell velocity. Yeah, 1,000 meters per second compared to 1,500. So it has less rate of fire for APCR. It deals less damage, but the credit cost is the same. Interesting. That's the number of shells in depot in your storage, so that doesn't really count. Wow, that's interesting. You have less rate of fire with APCR round that deals less damage, but it doesn't cost as much. So if you want the pin, you have to pay for it in DPM. That's a new mechanic or so. But 3 guns for this vehicle, a middle gun for a 57mm times 2. It doesn't have the high explosive as well. Huh. DPM is better than the stock gun. Same accuracy, same aim time, same reload time, but less shell in the clip. A little bit better penetration, little bit better, but you don't need this gun for the top gun. Yeah, you don't need it. It's just like a M103-ish of a design, or the AMX M4-ish heavy tank. You can choose one gun, choose a 105 or 120, but yeah, the top upgraded gun has a high explosive round, which is the caveat of the gun, right? You saw 4,700 DPM. Only get that with the high explosive rounds. But if you want a better penetration right off the bat with better alpha, then you have an intermediate step. The gun also weighs less than the stock gun, surprisingly. 57 weighs less than the 50. Perhaps the barrel length. Also going for the top gun as well, weighs less. So theoretically, you could sometimes put the tracks, or put the gun without the tracks. And you do need a turret, so we'll have to see with the actual vehicle, but maybe you can mount the turret and the gun without the tracks. But we'll have to see with the actual vehicle. Or you forgo the equipment slot. But stock value comparison. So stock 50 compared to intermediate 57 and top 57. So DPM is obviously better on the top gun, better accuracy, better aim time. Actually, aim time's the same. Better turret traverse, rate of fire, less rounds in a stream, in a sense, by 300. Turret ammo, or turret armor, has less armor on it by 10mm. Oh, so you get a weaker turret in a sense, but is it better sloping? Weighs slightly more, not that much. It's 0.2. Theoretically, if you can see the actual turret weight, I think you can mount the turret without using the tracks, but that has to be proven. Horsepower per turret ratio stock-wise is not that bad, but 30 is a little bit better. Top speed stays the same. Hull traverse gets a little bit better. Camo stays the same. Better view range by 10. View range seems bad, right? View range seems the same as tier 8s with worse camo and barely any more health by 60. Or yeah, health doesn't seem that great on this vehicle as well as the view range. It's all about the gun with the high explosive rounds. And you can only access it after fully upgrading the turret and the upgraded gun too, so it will take a while for you to use the high explosive rounds. But once you do, if you manage to pin, there's lots of DPM behind it. But equipment wise, it's obviously for combat light tanks at this point. I really wish Wargaming would do add a different category to light tanks besides versatile or cars in a sense. But tier 9s, this thing plays like this, like a Char Model 75, except bigger turret, bigger gun. Actually, not really bigger gun, but more punchiness of the gun. Yeah, DPM is dramatically better than this thing. So this is a burst fire gun. Penetration is not as good, right? It's about 200mm pin for regular tanks or regular light tanks. It's about 180 for the car. Yeah, it's about 180 for the car. So this thing has below average pin for a tier 9 light tank. But if you get 200mm pin with this gun, then it's kinda arbitrary to shoot at tanks at the front. This thing will see tier 7s. This thing will penetrate stuff like KV3s from the front with 200mm pin. So how much is the damage drop off per distance? Is there a limitation to the actual gun range? Like with the Panzer 1C, the Panzer 2J, the Lux, they have a range limitation of 400. So maybe there's a limit to these guns, but I doubt it. I mean, theoretically, these things could shoot down aircrafts. It's mostly an anti-aircraft machine gun some of the times, and you can also mount it on aircrafts, but is there a limitation to the gun range? Yeah, equipment-wise, it's a pretty standard loadout for all the vehicles at tier 9. All the light tanks generally don't have everything besides anything besides the firepower. All they choose is scouting. So optics, low exhaust, low noise exhaust thingy majig, and the commander vision system. It's pretty common. Nobody used the radio sets. Nobody used camouflage nets or binoculars anymore. These are so old school. These are like old vehicles that are not fast and you can passive scout effectively, but these been power crap to hell. You don't need these. You rarely need turbocharger or additional grousers for mobility, and not even the firepower ones. You don't even need, or the survivability ones, or the improved hardening, or none of these. These are outclassed. Small liners, throw those away. So the only thing I could think you could use is vertical stabilizer, like with the T49 using the derp gun, but most of the time the derp gun is only for fun. It's not for actual usefulness. You use the 90mm on this thing. You don't use the derp gun. The 90mm performs better, has better accuracy, better DPM, a lot better DPM, so better consistency with the 90, but seldomly you want to switch out the loadout for light tanks other than for actual scouting. You're playing to your strength, which is moving camo, not just shooting the gun, right? So yeah, equipment is pretty standard, but field mods, it's practically the same for all light tanks. First one is top speed or engine power. I say top speed. 62 is okay for a light tank. It's not crazy. It's not like 75 or 80. So you could use a little bit more top speed. I will say better top speed at the cost of some engine power. It's not much. So for the AMX 1390, it's going from 32 to 30, but top speed is jumping from 66 to 62. So I would still say top speed. Top speed is kind of important. Accuracy or DPM. DPM changes not that much. It's barely 100 compared to 0.38 to 0.35. So the change in accuracy is kind of substantial. I would say better accuracy over like 100 DPM. That's nothing. Reverse speed or crew protection and stun duration. So 3 kilometers per hour reverse speed is somewhat substantial. 26 to 20. Kind of nuts, but if you have a 3-man crew, then getting one crew person knocked out is pretty devastating. Also, it's 23 going backwards for this vehicle, so you could go down to 20. Drive in a circle, turn 180 degrees, you'll be fine. But having a commander knocked out or a gunner knocked out is pretty devastating. Waiting for the med kit to come back. So, especially with the low ass health. How much health does the... This thing has more health for the AMX 1390 than the LPT 67. Just to prove a point. Give me a split second. Health of a tier 9 light tank. 1,400 for RU-251. This thing has less health than an EBR? Holy crap! Oh my. No way. No way this thing has less health than an EBR. 1,150. That's a stock turret. That's a stock turret. Oh my. Yeah, 1,160. Compared to a... It's the same health as the EBR. Practically, right? Same health as a Charmadel 75. AMX 1390 has a little bit more health. It has the same body size as the RU-251. Just... not... It needs the 1,400 health. What the hell? This thing needs... not this thing. This thing needs the 1,400 health. Why is it so low? Only 1160. Alright, fine, whatever. So I will still say better crew protection. Alright. Finally, camo or view range. If you are combat medium tank, forgo the view range. Especially if you already have coated optics. I would say camo is kind of important, right? Camo is double dipping. You have basic stationary camo and moving camo. Whereas view range is just regular view range, right? There's no negation of foliage or other stuff, so I would say better camo rather than view range. And besides, you already have a limitation on view range in total, so you cannot oversee 445. That is the actual maximum distance, not the draw distance, but actual maximum distance of view range and stuff. It does help out with camo negation, but you cannot see more than 445 meters. But I would still say better camo. So this vehicle is still more combat medium tank of a light tank design than a actual light tank. Surprising how the stock gun has a double shell system for standard shell, not a gold shell in a sense. Kind of interesting note, but you want to get the top gun. The top 57 has a high explosive, and that thing has a DPM. So pair that with a commander that has intuition, and you can basically switch to a clip of high explosive rounds in the matter of like 4 seconds or so. But that's when you want to deal tons of damage to armorless targets. Wait, the FV4005 has 1800 health or so, right? You can basically clip out a ship barn with this vehicle. This thing sucks, I hate it. Yeah, 1850. So if you roll high, theoretically, you can one clip this thing in a burst. That is nuts. Shoot all the shells into the paper turret. The turret is 14 millimeters, so don't shoot the hull. The hull is okay, it's like a Centurion 1-ish, but shoot all the shells in the turret, you can actually clip out this thing with a just one mag of 57 millimeter. But yeah, the mobility is better than the tier 8, and surprisingly, the health, the view range is not as good as the standard tier 9. This thing could use 1400 health, right? This thing could use like 200 millimeter pen AP rounds, but we'll have to see. So for now, I will still say this thing is scary once you reach the top gun, especially the high explosive rounds, but it plays like a medium tank. The only downside to it is the health. That is the main limiting factor. You cannot penetrate itself with a high explosive round of the angle hull front and turret front, but oh no, still 6.5 feels decent as a medium tank, right? Just not that much health. Maybe 6 if I'm being a little bit harsh about the HP and the view range. View range did not get changed from tier 8. Not really. Same view range from tier 8, just worse camo by 0.5. Just better armor, not as much health. Better top speed, better horsepower per ton ratio, better hull traverse. Same penetration, same shell velocity. Double the damage in some cases. As with... not really, 50% more damage. As with the AP round and some of the high explosive. It does deal more damage, like double the damage of the 37mm on the VZ64. So, ooh, I would still say 6.5. It's scary gun for high explosive. High explosive carries this thing. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, as a light tank, it feels kind of generally unfavorable when you have less health than the average light tank, and view range is also less, right? It's like 390 for tier 9 light tanks. 390 across the board. I mean 370. 370 is for the pseudo car. Same goes with the actual car. So you are bottom of the barrel in view range, but interesting how this thing has the same camo as AMX 1390. And this thing has the same camo-ish as the AMX 1390 with the same view range. I'm just shitting on the AMX 1390 now. What? Alright, I mean, okay. Yeah, the view range and camo is the same as AMX 1390, but you have a big ass body. And the big ass body gets shot at, so... yeah, 6.5. 6.5 feels good. Well, there you go, folks. LPT 67. We're almost done with the Czech light tanks. So we'll wrap up the entire tech tree coming up next with the VZ71. But this thing has even worse camo, but a lot better gun performance. So it's a combat light tank. It's a medium tank practically. So we're getting close, but this whole tech tree feels generally like a medium tank. And generally not that bad in comparison to the blandness of the Japanese tank destroyers. Those feels whatever. It's a new mechanic. It's actually high octane, adrenaline rush of a playstyle, so kind of interesting. But as always, thank you guys for watching this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Get up to rock, get up to burn, stand with the pride and burn for your desire.